Hello, everyone, and welcome to this episode of Pod Save Chocolate. My name is Clay Gordon. I'm your host today, and I am the creator and the publisher of TheChocolateLife.com. Before we get started on today's episode, which is going to be a version of my holiday gifting guide, what I want to do is remind everybody that this episode of Pod Save Chocolate, like every episode, is sponsored by members of The Chocolate Life. If you're not a member of The Chocolate Life, you can go over there. This is the homepage of The Chocolate Life right now, and you can sign up. If you are a member, you will have noticed that this morning, just an hour or so ago, I set out the December member newsletter, and you can go click on the link. If you're a member, you'll see it says member here. You'll be able to view the entire member newsletter. Now, I am also uploading every episode of Pod Save Chocolate as an audio-only podcast. And so what you can do is you can go and listen to this. And for every episode of Pod Save Chocolate, there is, in fact, a post on The Chocolate Life. And if you're listening to it at a later time, you can go follow along here on The Chocolate Life. So all of the resources, all of the links, everything is here in the post so that you don't need to worry about catching them during the course of the episode. And of course, if you're listening to this, whether it's on YouTube, LinkedIn, or Facebook, you can go into the comments or the live chat on YouTube and let me know where in the world you're connecting from. And I will get that shout out up on screen. Or you can let me know if you've got a question or a comment. You can put that in the comments. And I will also get that up on screen and try to get your question asked and answered during the course of the episode. Of course, if I can't answer during the episode, I will follow up afterwards and put the answer in the comments to today's post. So just trying to close the loop and let everybody else know, and let everybody knows what it is that's going on. And with that, what I want to do is jump into the episode. I think it's there's a lot to cover today. Even though it may not seem like there's a lot to cover, there is a lot to cover because I have a lot of things that I want to taste. And that's going to be the focus of this episode, plus a couple of ideas in addition to that for hardware, for holiday gifting. And I suppose what I will also do is update this and say, oh, here are some ideas for reading for holiday gifting. I will put some reading suggestions in for holiday gifting later on after the episode posts for today. But with that, I do want to share again my screen over here and where you can see that there are links to today's episode and an explanation. I normally do this just as a post on The Chocolate Life and share it with members. But this year I decided to try something different and do it as a live post because a live episode of Pod Save Chocolate because I have a lot of chocolate to taste. There was a lot of chocolate from the recent Midwest Craft Chocolate Festival that I didn't get to in the previous episode. There was just so much that I wanted to talk about with Dustin and with Tandy and with Lila that we didn't get to all of the bars. And so that's where I'm going to begin today. Just jump straight into the tasting, starting off with things that I didn't taste the last time. All right. But here is a link to the bars that I was planning to taste last time, but didn't get to. So you can follow along later on. But I'm going to get to first the things I didn't taste. Now, this is a bar from Sweets Escalier. Sweets Escalier was not at the Craft Chocolate Festival, the Midwest Craft Chocolate Festival, but they have been winners consistently at the Craft Chocolate Challenge. And this is a bar that won silver in the 2024 in the milk chocolate category from Sweets Escalier in Japan. It is a Venezuelan Chihuahua milk chocolate. Now, many people would go, Chihuahua, not necessarily a bar I would think of in terms of turning into a milk chocolate, but nonetheless, this is something that Sweets Escalier did. And, I will post later on what my desk looks like, getting ready for this. It is really, really cramped and really, really crowded. So I'm going to be turning around and making sure that I drop this on a table behind me rather than just dumping it on the floor at my feet. But this is just a fabulous, fabulous smelling chocolate. And I do have to say that Sweets Escalier, they know what they're doing. I mean, the people at the company are just understand how to make chocolate. Technically, there's nothing you can find at fault with this bar. There is something about the sort of the Chihuahua-ness going with the milk. Again, it's a milk which is sourced in Japan, not a not again, but it is a milk that is sourced in Japan, not in the United States. So there's a slightly different flavor profile associated with it. But I think Dustin, when I left Rushville 2 weeks ago, had 10 bars. That's all there are in the United States. So what you might want to do is you might want to email Dustin. There's a link to email Dustin. There's a link to me. Well, there's not a link. No, I'm going to add a link. I'm going to add a link to the Chocolat Inn. So if you're interested in this bar and other winners of the Craft Chocolate Challenge in 2024, you can contact directly. But if you are a milk chocolate lover, if you are a dark milk chocolate lover, this is a 60%, again, Chihuahua from Venezuela milk chocolate. It is a really, really fabulous bar. I can recommend it. Again, there are only like 10 of them in the United States. And so if you have a milk chocolate fan on your Christmas gifting list, or you personally are a craft chocolate, milk chocolate fan, then this is something that you should definitely try to get your hands on if you can. So, and with that, I want to do a quick shout out to Thomas Forbes. Tom has been a longtime supporter of the Chocolate Life. He's currently in the Dominican Republic. So, Tom, thanks for reaching out to us from the DR. I really appreciate your doing that today. And when you get back, I know you and I were able to correspond very, very quickly this morning, is that we're going to do an episode, and one of the topics of the episode is talking about your experience in the Dominican Republic. I haven't been there since 2017. I don't really know why I haven't been there in so long. And so, yeah, I would really like to catch up on what you saw, not only in the capital, but you said you were in San Francisco de Macorís and were in other parts of the town, not just in Santo Domingo. And so would love to catch up with you on that. And also a quick shout out to Leora Omer, who is in Ireland at the moment. I'm working with her on a project that's got some really, really fun aspects to it, which we'll share. Perhaps in the new year. We're having a meeting of her advisory board in January, and maybe we'll get Leora on an episode of Pod Save Chocolate. We could talk about what it is that she's doing, because I think there's some really interesting things. Leora, I think you're asking about the Sweets Escalier bar. Can you get the bar in Ireland? And the answer is, I don't know the answer to that question, but what you may do is you may want to go out and visit the site at cocorunners.com. So spelled exactly as you would imagine cocoa and runners to be spelled, one word, and see if it's on the list of things that they offer. If it's not on the list of things that they offer, you can ask them to see if they can bring some in and offer it for you. But that would be the way I would think that you'd be able to get it in Ireland. All right. So, man, it's this really, really long and lovely finish on this bar as well. It clears cleanly, but from a cocoa butter perspective, the fat has left the mouth, but there's still this long and lingering, just sort of roundness and a sort of unctuousness. No obvious defects. I'm sitting here in the very, very long finish, and there's nothing obviously wrong with it. Anyway, Leora, thank you. Happy to be able to go do it. Let me know if you can. If you can, what I can do is I can put a link to it, or I will go and look to see if it's listed on the Cocoa Runners website. And if it is, I will put a link to this bar on the Cocoa Runners website. All right. Obviously, if you're in Japan, you may also be able to contact them in Japan and see if you can get it shipped directly. But of course, that would be fairly expensive. But the chocolate is awesome enough so that you may want to order a couple of bars and a couple of different bars to do it. It's really, really good quality stuff. So this is a little bit of a green tea, room temperature. So one of the exhibitors at the Midwest Craft Chocolate Festival was Cacaitos. Cacaitos is Cesar Aguiar. Cesar is currently living in Canada, but he is from Colombia. There's a cacao farm there in the northeastern corner, as I believe, and he has a series of what he calls 2I or 2-ingredient bars using cocoa that he grows. It's very, very close. So what I want to do is give this a chance. It is a 73% 2-ingredient from Chigurodó. in Colombia. Unfortunately, none of the other bars that I brought back with me exhibit any signs of bloom. There's a little bit of cocoa butter bloom on the back of this. Not entirely sure why, but excuse me. I mean, the aroma on this is just really, really solid cocoa and chocolate. I don't get any hints of it being over roasted. I don't get any hints of, sort of herbaceous or floral complexity or fruit complexity on it. Okay. And okay. So I think I understand why the back of the bar might be exhibiting some symptoms of bloom. And that is the texture of the notes are dry and include crunchy and grainy. So this is a not completely refined, not completely European style chocolate. It's more in the lines of what Taza might be producing. It's not as crunchy and crispy as the Modican chocolates are. So it's not like Doña Elvira or Antica Dottoria Boniuto, both of whom are Modican chocolates from Sicily. But even though there's only this, the straight cocoa note on the nose, in the Chigorodo, there's a lot of complexity in the flavor profile. And it does go through this really, really wonderful sort of, there's a fruitiness, it's a tangy fruitiness, so it's a citric fruitiness. It is below the tongue, which is really, really interesting for a fruity. It's not high up in the nose, it's below the tongue and on the tongue and in the bottom of the mouth. There's a very, very slight bit of astringency, but in a really, really pleasant kind of way. I mean, so apart from the, the visual defect of the cocoa butter bloom, which could be from transportation, I don't know. And, again, it doesn't say on the front of this or anywhere on the outside of the packaging about the texture, that once you understand what the texture is going to be, it makes complete and total sense. So if you're a fan of Taza, that kind of texture, and are looking for something which is in that note, this does say floral herbal. I get more fruity, but it says hints of butterscotch in the aftertaste. Yeah, I'm not currently tasting that cooked caramel that I would think of, buttery cooked caramel, which I think of as butterscotch. I'm getting a fruitiness rather than floral and herbaceous notes. Could be of the Venezuelan chocolate, could be because of the tea, could be lots of interesting, lots of differences. But again, if you do like what it is that Taza is doing and are looking for different flavors from different cocoa beans, I could completely recommend what it is that Cacaitos is making as an alternative to that kind of thing, either for yourself or for someone else, if you like that style of chocolate. And this is, it's a thinner bar. It's not as thick as the Taza bars are. And so it's actually more accessible in that respect. So good on you, Cesar. I mean, I like what it is that you're doing here. So now I'm going to go up in sort of the percentage range just because that's what I've got. So the next bar is from a Haitian company by the name of Ascania. And I know that name because I was working on the Big Chocolate Show in New York City. And so was in contact with the owners of the company at some point during the work that we were doing for the Big Chocolate Show. This bar is made in Haiti from Haitian cocoa beans, and it is sold by a company in Ohio by the name of Peace on Fifth. You can go to their website and you can purchase this bar and a bunch of other bars. London Co. Was exhibiting at the festival and just was, tremendous energy. I mean, really loved what it is she's doing. And she's focusing on chocolate's, social mission in one form or another. So she is the business of Peace on Fifth. It appears to be supporting not just farmers, but programs which do provide returns to the communities, not just the individual farmers. Now, this is, you can't see it here. It's an unusual mold. Yeah, maybe, yeah, you can see it here. It's a lovely mold. This is a 50%. I mean, it is warm. That's the first impression I would get. The aroma on this is just wonderfully warm and inviting. It may sound weird, but it sort of reminds me of sort of like a really fluffy blanket that's just come out of the dryer. And not in a bad way at all. It's just that there's a warmth that makes me feel good. I want to cuddle up with this in a way, which is really quite remarkable. The aroma. Oh, maybe more like toast. Maybe a better way to describe it as well. There's a toasted white bread and maybe a toasted brioche, something in there. Oh my gosh. I mean, this is a 50%. So it is slightly sweeter than I would personally eat on a regular basis. But having said that, it's a dark chocolate made with a local sugar called Rapadou, which is an unrefined sugar. It's from a cooperative of 500 farmers, and it's not fully refined. So if you're looking for a real European style, really smooth, really creamy chocolate, this is not where you want to go. That may be because of the sugar more than anything else. And the sugar is not completely refined. It makes a lot of sense that the sensation associated with this is a little sweeter than I would expect. And the texture is not nearly as distinct as the Cacaitos de Chiguerodo. It's also not as, the texture is not as obvious as many of the Taza chocolates as well. But man, yum. This is really, really surprising. And the people at Escania have done an amazing job over I haven't been involved in the Big Chocolate Show since 2017, 2018. I'm not exactly sure when that was, but oh my gosh, if you wanted an introductory dark chocolate to a younger person, right, especially you got a kid who's interested in exploring and you want to give them a dark chocolate, but you might think that maybe a 70% or something like that might be a little too much for them. You're interested in supporting, Ascania, interested in supporting the work that London is doing at Peace on Fifth, then this is definitely, you've got somebody who is not sure that they want to get into craft chocolate, and Hershey Special Dark is where their mind is in terms of thinking about quote unquote dark chocolate. Oh my gosh, that Ascania bar, total recommendation. It is amazing. There's a little bit of complexity, as it's in my mouth and I'm letting it taste. And it sort of moved from the sort of warm hug of something coming out of the dryer and toast, maybe toasted brioche, into something that's more like the crust of that toasted brioche or the toasted white bread. I mean, really, 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 really quite lovely. Oh my gosh. Anybody got any questions? Let me know. If you're watching, go into the comments. Let me know where you're connected from. Happy to do it. We're at the sort of holiday gifting guide episode of PodSafe Chocolate for 2024. Just some ideas about some, if you're not quite sure what to gift yourself or not quite sure what to gift friends and you're looking at explorations, here's some ideas. I do want to give a quick shout out now to Dustin Cornett of Chocolat Inn, and this is his business, Chocolat Bean de Bar, which is currently in Rushville, Indiana, moved there from Beattyville, Kentucky. He was the organizer of the Midwest, or the first primary organizer of the Midwest Craft Chocolate Challenge. And this is a bar, it's 75%, it's flavored, aromatized with bourbon from Jephthah and Creed, which is just, Dustin, you still got Kentucky here. But one of the things that I really do love about many, many bars is their great use of the inside of the packaging. And so if you wanted to give someone a bar and they're not really up to all of what it is that making chocolate from cocoa beans is all about, then this is a great introduction to that. So you can provide not only something which is a tasting opportunity, but you can give them something which is also an educational opportunity. So 75% cocoa. Not entirely sure on the front of the packaging where the beans come from for this bar. They talk a lot about the distillery on this bar, even though they don't talk about where the cocoa comes from. Just something to consider. One of the things that craft chocolate makers can do that industrial chocolate makers can't do is pinpoint the origin or the source of the beans that they're using. So that's something to consider when you redo the packaging, and include Indiana as the place where you are rather than continuing. All right. So there's the primary aroma on this is not necessarily a whole lot of cocoa per se. And by the way, it's a lovely mold. Although I do have to say, if you're doing molds like this and you want to do a tasting, it's really, really hard to break this up into even-sized pieces, but at least the mold is the same thickness all the way through, so that's a good thing. So there's a sort of sweetness on the aroma that I more associate with a bourbon barrel than I necessarily do with bourbon, although bourbon has a tendency to be sweeter than many other brown spirits. So in that respect, rum is up there as well, but it has a tendency to be sweeter, for example, than Scotch whiskey does, as opposed to other forms of whiskey. But okay. So as a 75% bar, for me, this doesn't eat like a 75%. It is, any of the sort of bitterness that you would associate with something at that cocoa content is completely non-existent. There is a sweetness which comes through most of the bar, which I would say comes from the bourbon. It's not alcoholic at all. It's not overtly bourbon, but there is this overlay, and it's starting to come up into my nose, which is associated with it. It provides interesting level. The chocolate is working sort of in the middle of the mouth towards the back and the bottom, but the aroma of the bourbon is up in the nose, and so there's just complexity. And it starts off with a sweetness, and it ends up with a little more heavily roasted. And there's no added vanilla in this bar, but vanillin is a substance which often comes up in a bourbon as due to the interaction between the alcohol in the barrel over the course of aging, especially depending on what the char level of the barrel is as well. So yum. This is really, really tasty. This is something you could give to a small child. I mean, there's no alcohol in here, but it's I think it's a good example of how the collaboration can go between a chocolate maker and a distiller or somebody who's making beer, to be able to put these two worlds together. This is also very well made. Oh, it's interesting. The astringency from the barrel is coming through not in a bad way, but I'm aware of, because of my involvement in creating a distilled spirit, sort of spent a lot of time tasting stuff, and there's a little bit, but it's the sensation in the mouth is evolving over time in a very, very, very nice way. Just really, 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 really lovely. And it's a well-made bar of chocolate. I mean, Dustin, because he's the organizer of the festival or organizer of the Craft Chocolate Challenge, can't enter his bars into the Craft Chocolate Challenge. So I haven't had a chance, to taste many of them. And during the festival, I was running around and didn't get a chance to spend time tasting stuff with Dustin, and was probably more focused on tasting things like the Sweets Escalier bar that we have rather than things that he made. So this is also a very well-made bar. I mean, the texture is smooth and creamy. And what I would do is I would think that because of the bourbon notes that are in here, this would make a great bar to pair with other brown spirits. But on the sweeter side, I would say a rum, maybe a rum agricole, a bourbon, maybe, oh, this would be interesting. If you could get a cask strength bourbon or something like that, or an overproof bourbon, this would be a great bar to go with that. Because number one, there's the complementarity of the bourbon in the bar, and the fat in the chocolate would help perhaps reduce the fire of an overproof bourbon, so it would settle it down. Really interesting thoughts. Just good job, Dustin. I think that's really, really, really nice bar, and I would add it to the list of things that I would taste. Just want to give a quick shout out to Lassa Skinner, who I am related to. I just want to let everybody know. And she missed the first part. We'll be providing with a full list. Will you be providing the full list of what you're tasting and featuring? Yeah, Lassa, as I've mentioned, that for every episode of Pod Save Chocolate, I do provide a list of links. And so I'm going through the links that are on the page for the gifting guide, which you can see up here with my little toy VW microbus carrying around a toy Christmas tree. They're all here. Now, excuse me, I am going to be tasting some other things, and they are in the previous tasting episode on the Midwest Craft Chocolate Festival, which is episode 84, and I've linked through to those. So yes, all of the links are available for you to go and do that. So you can go directly to the companies and to their websites. Where I've also done direct link to the products that I'm tasting, if that's an option. So yeah, I hope I answered your question completely. One of the things that I had the opportunity to do with Kjell from Fjorden was to take a trip on Sunday from Rushville down to Cincinnati, Ohio. And of course, we did, Cincinnati food things. So I took him to Skyline Chili. We had Grader's black raspberry chocolate chip ice cream. But we also went and spent a couple of hours with Paul Picton at Maverick. And this is one of the Maverick bars. I tasted this during the launch party for the book, the Pyramid Tasting Handbook. And so if you didn't pre-order the Pyramid Tasting Handbook, you're not going to get those notes. But that's why it's open. So this is an 80% Tanzania Cocoa Camille. It has won a Good Food Award. And I just got to say, I mean, I have been impressed since the very beginning with all of the work that Paul does. He is, his background as an engineer in aerospace shows in his approach to everything he does. Just buttoned down, nuts and bolts. Knows what it is that he's doing, and it shows in everything that he does. And by the way, that's why the artwork on the packaging is all air flight themed. Because of that background. So this is the 80% Tanzania. So extremely well made. I mean, from a texture perspective, from a bite and chew, tempering spot on. The tasting notes for this are citrus and cocoa, and I get it. Maybe a little more heavily roasted than I prefer generally, but that's where I am. If you prefer something, because that comes through in the cocoa aspect on the end. When I think of Tanzania, I often think of bright red fruit, often cherry. That's a note which is pretty typical. But I get the citric aspect of it when he says citrus. I have thought about this for a long time during the launch party episode. And I was thinking lime peel for the citrus notes, if that makes sense. Not lime juice, but not necessarily, maybe a little bit of the pith. There's a very, very slight bitterness which is associated with the citrus aspect of it. I mean, it's excuse me, for Tanzania, again, it's atypical for what we might think of as, typical, the red fruit, sort of bright cherry notes that we would think, excuse me, that are a part of Tanzanian cocoa. But this is really, really yummy. There's a complexity here. It goes back and forth between the citric, the citric fruitiness and the roast of the cocoa, but the bite on it is firm. The chew is easy. The melt is clean. And the flavor is long and lingering. It's in the back of the throat right now, sort of at the bottom of the throat as it's leaving the mouth. I'm still tasting it, and then boom, all of a sudden there's this, it's like sort of right there in the center of my mouth, and the top is, especially as I, breathe in and I change the chemistry of my mouth, and, I get in retronasal rather than orthonasal considerations of the aromas. So orthonasal being through the nose, retronasal being through the nasal passages in your mouth, in case you weren't familiar with the terminology that's there. Yeah, and even though there's a slight heaviness on the roast, there's no accompanying bitterness. So if you're looking for something which is is in the 80%-ish range because you like that, or somebody who likes that, it's just definitely a bar that I would totally consider gifting. Just wanted to let you know. It's really, really quite yummy, really quite well made. And the complexity of what's going on, sort of this beating back and forth between the citricity and the cocoa, the roasted cocoa flavor, is actually quite pleasant. And the finish is quite long. So, I like it quite a bit. Now so these are the bars that I didn't get to as part of the tasting from the Midwest Craft Chocolate Festival. I want to go back to the bars that I did have a chance to taste. The first one of which is the croissant bar from Embers here in Arizona, Tandy Peterson. It's a 45% milk chocolate. And rather than put the chocolate inside the croissant, what Tandy has done, she's taken the croissant, she's dried it out, she's crumbled it, and she put it on the back of the bar. And she made the bar with red miso paste. And so it's a milk chocolate made with red miso paste. It's not clear where the beans come from here, but it's something you can always ask Tandy about. And you can see I have finished it, right? So between last Tuesday was when I did this, and this Tuesday, I have completely finished this bar, which gives you an idea about what I thought about it. The red miso paste in the milk chocolate gives it a flavor which is quite unusual, right? And the croissant, as an addition, provides a texture, and it's on the back of the bar. It's not mixed in, and which is unusual. And then if you get the aroma of the croissant on your nose, so it's a complex in an interesting kind of way. If you're not a big fan of miso paste as a flavor, and red miso, which has a tendency to be stronger than white miso, maybe this is something you might not want to take a look at it. But if you've got somebody who is adventurous, or you are adventurous, and you're looking for something out of the ordinary, this would go, this at breakfast, right? The French like to put, butter and grated chocolate on top of a baguette, maybe a toasted baguette. The Dutch like to put, butter on bread with hagelslag, like hundreds of thousands, but only chocolate hundreds of thousands, or Jimmy's, depending on where you live. Sprinkles, chocolate sprinkles. So breakfast, definitely breakfast. And if you're a fan of Japanese style breakfasts, you're really going to love this. As I said, of all the bars that I got from the Craft Chocolate Festival, Midwest Craft Chocolate Festival, this is the one I finished first because I was so intrigued with it and just wanted to go, what do I think about it? What do I think about it? So think about that. If you want to start a conversation with someone about craft chocolate, this could be very cool. A second bar that I almost finished. Packaging is minimal. This won a silver in the 2024 America's round of the Craft Chocolate, or the International Chocolate Awards, from Mademoiselle Miel. Is their wild rice and cranberry bar. And what's they're refining the cranberries into white chocolate, and oh my gosh, yes, cocoa butter, maple sugar, wild rice, and cranberry. So there's a wonderful cranberryness to this bar. Slight texture of the rice, but the wild rice provides this cranberry flavor. Just it's not there to begin with, and then it just explodes in your mouth afterwards. The wild rice provides an earthy base to this, so which is quite lovely. Yeah, I'm going to finish it right here. I got little bits of it, so this is the bar that I almost finished. Yeah, yum yum, really really nice. Just puts a smile on my face. Just puts a smile on my face. I'll just say that, all by itself, that's more than enough to be able to recommend this bar. The next one that I want to go back to is from Chalks and Boxes in Chicago. Now, the family owns a farm in the island of Samar in the Philippines, and that's where they get a lot of the materials they work with, the cocoa. Don't know if they're making their own cocoa butter. It's not quite clear to me, but they talk about a little bit of the history. It is important that there was a galleon trade between Acapulco and Mexico. I believe the Jesuits to Manila, and so cacao. The Philippines is one of the first places outside of the Americas where cacao was transported to. So that history, there's some amazing genetics, and I got to say, this bar astounds me still. I mean, I've got it down, out of view, and I can smell it. I mean, the aroma of this bar is amazing. And if you're not familiar with ube, right, which is taro root, I mean, it's purple. I mean, it is purple, right? And it is a cornerstone of Philippine dessert tradition, and I'm sure they use it in lots of other ways. But the aroma on this bar is amazing, and it is a tuber, right? And so you go, oh yeah, I can. There's an earthiness to it, and a sweetness to it, and there's an aromatic component to it, which is really quite remarkably wonderful. It's a white chocolate, and I wanted to save it for today. Otherwise, this bar, because it's like the color is so amazing, but there's a slight texture to it, but there's the creaminess of the white chocolate. There is that sort of tuberous quality, which is associated with ube. I've talked to some people who don't like ube, right? And it's sort of like cilantro. You like it. Oh man! But on the end of this, there's is salt an ingredient in this bar? There's an umami-ness. Nope. There's lecithin from soy, but there's no added salt. So there's an umami-ness which comes through at the end after the tuberous, sort of aromatic, herbaceous, almost on the fruity side, which comes through. So this is that bar from Chalks and Boxes, which is their ube bar. Very highly recommended. It's really unusual. It will spark conversation. You will either really love it or really not like it. But I recommend for the adventurous person, maybe somebody who says they don't like white chocolate, I got a white chocolate that you might like, right? And that when I put the Mademoiselle Miel bar in that same thing, it is a white chocolate, but it's got the cranberry and wild rice in it. And you go, ooh, that's an interesting combination. Very Thanksgiving-y, cranberries and wild rice. So something to consider. Yeah, really, really lovely. The next bar I'm going to get to is from Encore Coffee and Chocolate Makers. They're in Kansas City, Missouri. Mike King started off as a coffee roaster and then turned to making chocolate. And as I have recalled, the fact that he is a roaster here coffee roaster here shows up in his approach to the way he roasted the beans for chocolate. There's a delicate hand on the roasting, which shows up in everything that he does. With any dark chocolate where you're using sea salt on the back of the bar, you need to consider that there are two ways to eat this bar. One is put the bar with the salt down on your tongue, and the other one is with the chocolate down on your tongue. And you'll get very, very different sensations of the bar depending on which you do. And this is part of the fun exploration of lots of bars, is if there's anything on the back of them, taste them two different ways. Taste them with the inclusion or whatever it is on the back on your tongue, and then turn them over and taste them the other way. This is a sea salt. I don't think Mike mentions where the sea salt comes from. He doesn't. It just says sea salt. It's organic sugar, organic cocoa butter. He doesn't say on the, it's a blend of two different beans. I do remember Mike saying that. Right. And what happens is that once the salt clears in your tongue, right, is that there is this umami-ness that comes through that is really, really quite remarkable, which is unusual. And that's one of the reasons why I would recommend this bar. Is there's something about the combination of the salt with the combination of a particular blend of beans that he's using here. I believe one is Ecuadorian. He said Camino Verde. He was in the chat last week, and I think the other one might be Dominican, maybe Zorzal, if I remember. Right. It is that umami wave that comes through in the middle, which says, ooh, this is an unusual bar of chocolate. Now, again, I think it's something you will either like or you will not like. But from an experimentation perspective, I can really recommend it. Really well made, and you're supporting a craft chocolate maker in the American heartland. So always a good thing to consider as you're doing that. Next one is from Elmer Pineda. This is Yohoa chocolate from Honduras. This is an 85% bar, and I have this little hand-drawn sticker. It is not listed on their website yet, but it's going to be there very, very soon. It is listed as chocolate artisanal. I forget where I opened it. It's an 85%. And Elmer has been a participant in the Craft Chocolate Challenge. He and I had an episode where I tasted just his bars. He sent them to me for evaluation. I said, let's do an episode where we can talk about what you're doing. You can just search on The Chocolate Life. If you go over to The Chocolate Life, click up here, and then click on the search button up here. You can search for Yohoa, Yojoa. And here's an episode of Pod Save Chocolate focused solely on this bar. So it's an extremely well-made bar in terms of texture, right? It's an 85%, right? So it's not over roasted, but that roast comes through. So there's an intensity associated with it. Just to let you know, a little bit of astringency that comes through as well. Not overwhelming, not unpleasant, but it's an intense bar, but in a good way. So if you like a high cocoa content chocolate bar and are interested in, maybe haven't tasted a whole lot of Honduran cocoa, very, very much recommend what it is that Elmer is doing at Yohoa in Honduras. And if you go look at the episode of Pod Save Chocolate, I believe there's a list of all the different bars that I tasted there. And there's lots of options. There are a lot of different bars that he makes, which have, some with banana. I believe there's one with tamarind, other things. So if you're interested in interesting combinations, right, go take a look at what it is that Yohoa is doing. And I'm turning around, so I'm tossing it on my table again, so it doesn't hit the floor. we're towards the end. There's still a whole lot to do. So this episode is going to run long. I hope you don't mind. But I do want to remind everybody you're watching Pod Save Chocolate. My name is Clay Gordon. I'm your host. If you are not a member of The Chocolate Life, you can go over to TheChocolateLife.com, sign up as a member. Please like the video, subscribe to the channel, click the notification bell so that you'll be notified when new episodes are posted. And with that sort of intervention in the middle of things, let's get on. Because lots to do still. All right. So I want to talk about another bar. This is from Fjorden in Norway, Stavanger, Norway. Kjell has been a regular participant in the Craft Chocolate Challenge. And this is a bar that I picked up. It's a rum and raisin bar. And one of the reasons why I chose this is because I had an opportunity many, many years ago to take a class from Robert Langs, who's the founder of La Maison de Chocolat in New York City. And he said during that class that he has a rum and raisin bonbon, and that rum raisin bonbon was a favorite of his. I'm also a huge fan of rum raisin ice cream. And so this is sort of very, very much, hits a sweet spot for me in terms of like nostalgic memories. It's a milk chocolate. Is it a milk chocolate? It is a milk chocolate. I go and look at the ingredients. Anyway. And I believe the raisins are macerated in the rum and then they're dried. And so the rum is in the raisins, making them a little sticky on the back. But the balance between the chocolate and the texture of the raisins, the texture of the chocolate, the texture of the raisins, the flavor of the chocolate and the rum in the raisins. I mean, if you like the combination of rum and raisin, this is a bar you want to go consider. Again, I don't know if it's available in the United States. I believe there may be some of these at Dustin's shop, Chocolate Inn in Rushville. And so I'll put a link to the shop on the post for today's episode. So you can go look at it. If you're interested, you can contact Dustin and find out if he has some. I know that he left some behind with Dustin. And so consider that. The final chocolate from the festival, finally, after it was like, 12 chocolates, is this one from Dwar in Chicago. So not Raj or Rajani. Lovely woman. We talked at great length. I'm not going to taste this again. The reason why I'm not going to taste this again is because they're candied spicy peanuts. And if I have the spicy peanuts, it's going to ruin my palate for the rest of what it is that I need to do today. But this is from Dwar. And I think that I don't think that a lot of what, there's a huge inspiration in what Rajani does in bringing traditional Indian, and this is India in, not in the United States, not ethnic, indigenous American Indian. So these are cocoa beans from Coco Camilli. She's making her own chocolate from beans. And in this case is adding, a traditional Indian spice blend and the candied spicy peanuts. It's spicy enough so that I don't want to blow out my palate for the rest of what it is that I want to do. But if you like the spice mixture, which includes cloves and cinnamon, cardamom, nutmeg, star anise, fennel, and you like spicy stuff, right? Then this is something that, or you have a friend or a family member who likes that stuff. This is a bar that they are going to like. I can recommend it for all of those reasons. So that's everything from the the Midwest Craft Chocolate Festival. I want to get to a couple of other things. The first one is a company. And so this is a company that I linked to in the post for today. Let's do that. Let's move over to the post for today. And I'm going to get there first, which is Amore de Mona. So just want to give a quick shout out to Mona, right? She's a member of the Chocolate Life. We're working together to sort of help freshen up the presentation that she's making on the website. But nonetheless, I mean, the products are amazing. If you're interested in vegan, gluten-free, and allergen-free confections, right, then these are really, really wonderful things to purchase. There are two in particular in a box that she gave me, which were made with, or they're two different boxes, one with Cointreau, one with Grand Marnier. These are more traditional ganaches. But now the nature of the orange is different between Cointreau and Grand Marnier, and it's visible or tasteable in the two bars. I'm looking at, these are slabbed and either dipped or enrobed. I mean, they're very, very well made in that respect. The texture is really, really quite wonderful. And so if you do have a family member who wants something which is, a rich confection, and does have some sort of dietary concern according with allergies, or is a vegan, then these are very, very highly recommended. This is a very, very smooth ganache. But if you want something which is a little crunchier, they have a product which, unfortunately, I set out many of these for my Thanksgiving dinner celebration. I was celebrating with family. There were 35 people at dinner. They make a sel mignardise, which has got puffed rice in it, and then there's salt on the top. And if you want something which is a little crunchier, a little more toothsome, then I can recommend the sel mignardise, which I believe, if I remember properly, if I remember correctly, Mona said was one of their best sellers. Again, really, really, really quite well made. One of the things that's interesting about what it is that Amore di Mona does is they make their own couverture by combining cocoa liquor or chocolate liquor and cocoa butter and liquid sweeteners. And so some of their chocolates are sweetened with maple syrup. Again, not maple sugar, but maple syrup. Some of their products are sweetened with agave nectar. And they're working on a new liquid sweetener using a concentrated fruit syrup. It's not cacao juice syrup. This is from the new thing they're doing is from from a small producer in Italy that's doing an amazing job making a fruit sweetener. And I don't know that I can mention what it is quite yet, but they're really quite lovely. And the differences between the maple sweetener and the agave sweetener and this other sweetener are really quite subtle, but they're really quite lovely. I can certainly recommend them to try out the differences. But if you've ever had a chocolate which is sweetened with agave, what you'll do is you'll find that it's very soft. So the bite on this is very tender, more like a chocolate which has got a lot of milk in it, or a white chocolate. It's got that sort of soft, and it has a very different melting structure. And so they do make little Neapolitans, they're little tasting squares. And if you've got somebody who has got a lot of issues associated with allergens, again, is vegan. I mean, these are really, really quite wonderful ones. So this was a straight chocolate bar sweetened with maple syrup, just an organic dark chocolate, 75%. That was what I was tasting. It's not overly mapley, but maple has a tendency to be sort of earthy and rich, and which is very, very different from the way agave presents itself. And it's also different from the way this fruit syrup presents itself, which is a little lighter and brighter with the agave in the middle. And so really, really quite a lovely thing. So it's got a low glycemic index. It is, depending on how you're managing, if you've got a diabetic condition, I mean, it's got a very, very low glycemic load, which is actually more important than glycemic index. But if you are looking for a chocolate which doesn't have any of sort of the weird tasting, which is associated with putting stevia in it, or an alternative like erythritol or xylitol or monk fruit or something like that, then these straight um, um, maple or agave sweetened chocolates from Amore di Mona are something to put on your radar and consider, and whether it's the bars or it's the confections. I have another bar here, which is called Caramella, which is the caramel that they make. Interesting way that they make the caramel a bunch of different ways. So it's got fair trade, organic agave nectar, cocoa butter from France, cocoa solid from Ghana, so apple juice, sweetened cranberries, and organic ground vanilla bean. So that's the ingredients in this. And it's a rustic presentation because there are actually three pieces which are wrapped up in this. So it's not, this is a very large bar. Again, the construction of this from an aroma, I want to give you an idea about the chew on this caramel. If you want just sort of luxurious, just caramel experience, yum. Not overly sweet, which often caramels are, if you're not careful. Slightly tart because of the cranberries. This is just a straight chocolate bar. This one is with the agave nectar. Not gonna try it. And then I've got another one, which is a straight caramella bar without the cranberries. And so this is done in a, throwing things around, a 3-bar variety pack. You've got somebody who is worried about sugar intake, looking for something which is low glycemic load, somebody that is vegan, is got any issues with allergens. I can't recommend, I'm sorry, I'm trying to put this together. Well, I should be paying attention to you. I can't recommend Amore di Mona more highly. Really lovely people, and Mona has been at the forefront of pioneering this approach to making chocolate for close to 20 years. So you're dealing with a women-owned business and just lovely people who take great care in producing really, really wonderful products. And I like them working with Mona in part because, the landscape is changing in this particular space. And so trying to innovate and working to create new product lines with different kinds of sweeteners is a way of keeping things fresh. And with this commitment not to use artificial sweeteners of any kind, I really do like. Right? So the final tasting that I'm going to get to, and I'm going to follow this up with a post on the Chocolate Life, is that I was approached recently by Alter Eco, the PR company from Alter Eco, and said, "Hey, would you like to try some of our chocolates for the holidays?" I said, "Fine, please. I would be happy to taste them." And I've got some stuff. I've got 4 bars from Alter Eco. I have an orange cream bar, a brown butter bar, an 85% blackout bar, classic, and an 85% raspberry bar. And then I also have 3 of their truffles, 3 flavors of truffles: silk velvet, right? And then salted caramel, and this one here, which is just their classic dark truffle. So here's what I want to say about Alter Eco. So number one, I met one of the founders of the company, named Matthew Senard, a long time ago. I don't remember exactly when. If you have somebody in your universe who is attracted by certifications, right? So these are Fair for Life, B Corp certified. There are other certifications associated with it. They're working towards forest restoration. They're also considered to be, they're highly ranked, Alter Eco is, on some chocolate scorecards, right? I'll just leave it at there. They don't manufacture the chocolate or the products themselves. They're manufactured in Switzerland for them. Last time I looked, the manufacturer was actually a company called Chocolat but they are incredibly well made. I want to start off with the truffle collection. So if you look these up, these look like Lindor balls. right? And if you have somebody who, or you like Lindor balls, but you look at the ingredients list and go, ick, I don't want that, then these are, a form factor one-to-one shoe in for Lindor balls. I had somebody I read about who was looking to find Lindor balls because they wanted to use these in advent calendar. Put it in the drawers for an advent calendar. That's about how much room there was. These are a great alternative for anybody who's looking for a more socially conscious, less hyper processed product. Now, I will say I opened up 3 of them this morning. I've tasted them before. This one is oops, I got chocolate all over myself. This is the Velvet Truffle. It's a milk chocolate outside, and it is a milk chocolate ganache inside. And that void is not a good thing. The shelf life on this is going to be a little bit shorter, even though the shell is relatively thick, but oxygen, an air bubble inside the shell, not necessarily the greatest thing. These are manufactured, on a one-shot line. Don't understand why these are underfilled. But having said that, there's something about the filling on a Lindor ball, which is the way it melts. And again, Lind has spent a lot of time working on a bliss point for this, and these do not match one-to-one. The sort of bliss point. The filling is not quite as liquid. It's not quite. It's not liquid at all. It's not quite as soft. Not quote unquote wet would be a better term for a ganache like this. But right again, so this classic truffle is if you wanted, or this is not the classic truffle. This is the silk velvet truffle, which is the dark milk chocolate. If you wanted to replace the Lindor ball, especially for a chocolate-loving kid or adolescent, right? The wrappers are home compostable. These are backyard compostable wrappers. This is compostable packaging. If all of those things interest you, right, then this is a great set of products for you. I can't say anything bad about this silk velvet truffle, other than the fact, there was this void. It's a dark milk chocolate, very well made, as I would expect. And again, given the option of eating one of these and eating a Lindor truffle, a Lindor ball, I would take these in a heartbeat every single time, right? For lots of reasons. They are going to be more expensive, and that's going to be a turnoff for some people, but I believe these are much better constructed. Made in Switzerland, whereas if you're in the United States and you buy a Lindor ball, they're made in New Hampshire. So another one. So the next one I'm going to try is they do have a classic dark chocolate truffle. The classic dark chocolate truffle suffers from the same problem. Now, this void in the bottom is because I cut it and it's from the knife, but there is a hole in the top of this. It's underfilled. Not entirely sure why that happened. It is it's not all that dark, but I don't consider it to be all that dark. And if you're a dark craft chocolate fan, this dark is going to be sort of in the semi-sweet variety. But again, right, if you're interested in Lindor balls, want a better product, are looking for something which is going to provide you with that. It's not quite the same eating experience because the centers are not quite as quote unquote wet, but they're not as highly engineered. And the ingredients list, on the ingredients list on the silk velvet truffle is raw sugar, butter, milk, coconut oil, which are using instead of palm oil, I think, cacao beans, natural flavors, and vanilla beans. It's about as straightforward an ingredients list as you can possibly get. The third flavor I have is a salted caramel flavor. And for one reason or another, This one was filled properly. Not entirely sure why. This one was filled properly. Maybe if I cut another one, it won't be. I didn't cut a lot of them open to test this, but I noticed it. And I get the caramel, not heavily salted, right? I prefer something which is a little bit more heavily salted. And again, very simple ingredients list, great texture, straightforward flavor with nothing in the long finish, which is going to give away, oh, the salt comes through now, right? It's not on the front. The salt is on the end. So in that respect, that complexity, quite lovely. I mean, you're doing this, you're doing this, you're doing this. You get the caramel, you get the chocolate, and all of a sudden, boom, there's this bright hint of salt, which comes and goes very, very quickly in a refreshingly, positively unexpected way. Really got to love it. Really got to love it. Yeah. Yum. I'm probably going to finish those ones first. But that said, I'm going to go through and with some of the other products. So I did try the orange cream truffle thins. I did this last night. And you know, if you're looking for a filled bar, you like orange, maybe you like a Terry's orange, or you know something like that, but you want, again, something which has got a cleaner ingredients list, very clean ingredients list. And again, what you've got is you got compostable materials. This one is gluten-free, certified organic here in the United States. Fair for Life, it's a B Corp, all that kind of stuff. Again, distributed by Alter Eco Foods, so not manufactured by, but distributed by, again, Chocolates Alba. I mean, this is a pleasant eating experience. I really do. If you like orange and chocolate, I can recommend it. Not so much with the brown butter. I am spoiled, I would say, having had a chance to taste the brown butter bar from Fruition, and this one for me is out of balance. The brown butter is mixed into the chocolate. It's not a layer, which could have been interesting if they had made a brown butter layer like they did with the orange cream. So let me see if I can show you the orange cream bar. Right, the cream. Look at this. Is actually a thin layer. You see that? That's the orange cream in between. It really does come through in doing it. When I look at the brown butter bar doesn't have that same layer in the middle. So the brown butter is mixed into the chocolate, and it's just out of balance. There's an astringency there, which I personally didn't find to be my taste. I didn't like it, again, and that's probably because what I'm doing is I'm saying I've had a much better version of this, or a version that I like much more from Fruition. The third bar, that we tried is their 85% classic blackout. I mean, if I had to choose between this and the Yohoa bar, I would go with the Yohoa bar in terms of 85%. I just find it a much less challenging presentation. The roast on this is what it is. That's first and forward. But one of the things you can get with the Alter Eco bar is you can walk into an upscale grocery store. So you can get this. It's in my Sprouts locally. You'll be able to find it at lots of local upscale grocery stores. And so if you're looking for a high cocoa content chocolate, it's more or less responsibly made. It's got a bunch of certifications. It is organic. It is gluten-free. But you're looking for something which is not going to break the bank, and you can find locally. You don't have to order it online. Then this particular bar is something that I can recommend for those reasons. Although, again, if you're used to consuming a craft chocolate maker as opposed to an industrial chocolate maker, who is more careful about bean selection, I would say, and more careful about roasting, then that is something to consider. The fourth one I've got here is a raspberry blackout. So it is the same 85% cocoa, and I haven't tasted this one yet, but it's got raspberries in it, and the raspberries are an inclusion in the bar. So let's go taste that. Okay. I didn't taste this because I thought what would happen is what happens is that there's a over roastedness to the 85%, the blackout, you know, and the acidity of the raspberry sort of accentuates that in a way that's not to my liking at all. Yeah, I'm sorry. I tend to like raspberry and chocolate together. I do not like this combination at all because the acidity of the raspberry accentuates what I consider to be the negative aspects of the 85% blackout. What I would suggest to our friends at Alter Rico is that what they do is they make this a raspberry cream filling the way they make an orange cream filling. And they might figure out a way to make it a brown butter cream filling, right? As opposed to adding the brown butter to the chocolate. I mean, I think they're really good ideas. Again, I think the brand has a lot of attributes going for it that people will like, but I think those particular iterations are not ones, again, that I would recommend highly. Whereas I think that the orange cream, as well as the truffles, are ones that I have no reservations whatsoever, no hesitations whatsoever in terms of recommending. I do have another post from Lassa, who says, "Great gift ideas, thanks. The caramella bars look tremendous. They are off, and you're in Rhode Island, as I remember, and they're in New Hampshire, and family in Massachusetts, so something to consider. But they're sadly sold out. Oh no! All right, maybe mid-January available." So Kathy is Lassa's mother, my ex-mother-in-law, as it turns out. Can't wait to try the Embers Red Miso Croissant Bar. And Lassa, her dreams of memories of Thailand, dreams of Thailand bar is great. She's got a bar with cherries in it, which is amazing. Tandy comes from a culinary background as opposed to a pastry background, and she brings a lot of the flavor experimentation from the culinary background there. But if you do reach out to Amore di Mona, anybody who reaches out to Amore di Mona for any of their gifting, just please let them know you heard about it from me, right? Brownie points, I don't know that it's going to get you anything special, but we are working together, and it would be lovely for her to know that you heard about things from me. Okay, final things I want to get to today are around hot chocolate and mocha. All right, and things like that. So when I was at the Midwest Craft Chocolate Festival, somebody used one of these. This is a milk frother, right? And what they were doing is they were creating samples of hot chocolate to give away to people who were at attending the festival. And this particular frother has a frothing wheel, so there's a little whisk at the bottom, right? And it also has a blending wheel. Right. And so what I've been doing is I've been making my first coffee in the morning a mocha. Yay. So I am a huge fan of the AeroPress. This is my coffee maker. It's an inexpensive device for making coffee. There's a link on the chocolate. Oh man, it smells like coffee. There's a link on the post for today for buying the AeroPress. It's about $30 if you buy it on Amazon. I a couple of years ago, I purchased this. Oops, let's hide this for a second. Where am I? Well, there's my cursor. I purchased this, which is it's called the Prismo. It's from a company called Fellow, and it attaches to the bottom to the AeroPress. It has a stainless steel filter as opposed to paper filters. And so you just wash it and reuse it, whereas the paper filters are one time. Produces a different flavored coffee, just so you know. Paper filters will get some sediment out, and it provides some clarity in what it is that you're drinking. something I learned from James Hoffman, watching his stuff, but I like the reusability of this. And the way this works, it requires more pressure to push it through, and so the extraction is a little bit different. But what I do is I get my AeroPress, smells good, my AeroPress going, getting it ready to press through, right? So one reason, if you like French press coffee, this is like 1,000 times easier to clean than a French press. So one reason to think about this to go. But then what I will do is, while I'm waiting for my AeroPress to steep, what I do is I fill this to the minimum fill line with cold whole milk, and I use the stirrer paddle. And then what I do is I use this chocolate mix from my friends at Sip Extraordinary, En-Ming Xu and her sister, whose name escapes me at the moment. I'm sorry. I met En-Ming mid 2000s, 2006 or something like that, when we were both working on the World Pastry Forum and the World Pastry and National Pastry Team Championships. I have this fabulous picture of En-Ming and my daughter Alex when Alex joined me in 2010, I think, at the World Pastry Forum in Nashville, Tennessee, at the Gaylord Hotel. So there's this nostalgic and just component, and being just a fabulous person. And so this is one of the things that I've been doing as part of my morning ritual. I often will make 2 AeroPresses a day. Each one is about 2 cups by get done. So an Americano is the way I produce it. So I'll do a full AeroPress and then fill enough water to make 2 cups of coffee. And including dairy, I prefer my morning ritual for coffee has got dairy in it without sugar. But the first one I make every morning is now a mocha. So we'll throw the milk in from the milk frother. And so, number one, if you like the idea, hey, I'd like an easy way to make a mocha in the morning, this is a great way to make a mocha in the morning. And you don't have to use the Sip Extraordinary, although I like it. I do recommend it. You can use another hot cocoa mix. You could melt chocolate into the milk. It's warm enough and there's enough agitation for you to take small amounts of chocolate and melt them into the hot chocolate. So you could certainly do that. But it's a great way, because even though it may take a minute or two to froth the milk with the cocoa mix, that's less time than it takes for the AeroPress to steep. So it's in parallel. When you get done, you just pour the mocha into the into the coffee, or you pour the hot chocolate into the coffee, and you've got a fabulous mocha where, depending upon what setting you use on the frother and whether you use the stirrer or the frother, you can get just a wide range of textures associated with your drink in the morning. And oh my gosh, I'm looking around. I think that's everything that I wanted to cover today. It's a lot to go over. And I want to thank everybody who has been a part of this episode of Pod Save Chocolate today. It's been a lot of fun. Lots of stuff going on here. So this is the episode for Pod Save Chocolate. What I will do is I will go put in a couple of links, which I said I would put in a couple of links. So try to get those done by the end of today. I will take all of the episodes, 81, 82, 83, 84, 85, 86, and over the weekend, I will upload them as audio podcasts. And if you have any questions or comments, you can go put them into LinkedIn or YouTube or Facebook, wherever you happen to be watching this today. Or if you're a member of the Chocolate Life, you can add them at the bottom of this page in the discussion category. It's like way down. It's all the way down here. Right, member discussion, you've got that. And so, yeah, that's it for today. Want to thank everybody and say thanks all to the members of the Chocolate Life who support this episode of Pod Save Chocolate. If you're not a member, go over there, sign up. There's always a free membership that you can get to. And we'll be back here on Friday the 13th. Not quite sure what the episode topic is going to be yet. I got a couple of things floating around in my brain, not entirely sure what that's going to be. But in the meantime, what I want to do is remind everybody as I close is, if you're working with chocolate and you're not having fun, you're doing it wrong. And so until the next time, everybody, ciao.